Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Economic Development Committee. Today's Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Well, welcome, everyone. So, I would like to, why don't we go around the table since we have some new members today? Why don't we start with you, since you're new here today? How are you?
Good evening. My name is Laura Gandy. I'm the chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. It's my understanding that Jerry has resigned because he's moving out of state.
Oh,
Thanks for having me.
thanks for coming.
Kim Connett, Town Administrator.
Jeremy Robitaille, Planning Board.
Kimberly Queenan, Selectman's Rep.
Jamin Cara, a Natural Regional Planning.
Peter Plansky, School Board Rep.
Diane Plansky, Conservation Commission.
And Peter Ames from Recreation Commission.
Great. Welcome. I think this is our third meeting, maybe, right? Third or fourth? Third, because we had one cancellation. All right, so public input, we can do 6:45. Right now, there is nobody here or logged on, so we will call that around 6:45. All right, let's get to the business today. So, approval of the minutes from July 20th and August 30th of 2023. Why don't we do them separately since we have different people attending on those days? Let's do July 20th. Did everyone have a chance to look at those? Yeah, I think we had before, we didn't have enough members to vote on it the first time. All right, does anybody want to make a motion to approve the July 20th minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the July.
Okay, we have a
minutes.
first.
I'll second the motion to
Have a
approve.
second. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Those who abstaining? 3. Okay. All right, let's look at the August 30th, 2023 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at those? All right, is there any discussion on them? Okay, does anybody, I'm open to a motion if anybody wants to approve them.
I'll make a motion to accept the August 30th minutes as prepared.
Great. Peter?
I'll second the motion.
A
to accept the
second,
minutes.
okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Very good. All right, so on to agenda item number 2, review of the committee charge. All right, I'm going to, now you added A through C, so I'm going to turn it over to you right now. For the committee, you want to go through the ABC, the economic growth, retention, relation to impact fees? Yep, there's an attachment there, yep.
Yes, so we had put this on the agenda, after the discussion, because this has been such a topic that has come up both here, of course at the planning board, because they're reviewing the impact fees, and, budget. So we're talking about the charge of the committee, and in relation to the impact fees, there's really no charge of the committee to review impact fees or weigh in on the development of the impact fees. There is information that we are asked to educate the public on when we are either giving community forums or, we're asking for feedback from them, but it's not really the committee's charge to figure out the growth at this point. At this point, we're really more in the education sphere. It's really not our charge to decide what will go in any particular way or change the zoning at this point, or we are more in a fact finding to find out what it is that the community wants. to see.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that we don't take into consideration, growth when we're talking about the tax base and, I mean, costing out certain models, or if the community decided to do this, what would happen to the, tax base, or if the community decided to do that. But I think that's further down the line than where we are now. The question had come up about municipal exempt property, and we did run a report. There are reports that we can run to gather information if the committee wants information on what type, how many, what commercial property you have, what residential property you have. NRPC, put together a map that I brought here that is all color-coded as to what type of property is where. And that might be helpful in community education. But really, the first charge of the committee was fact-finding. I mean, in educating the community as to what we have and what do they want to see happens.
Right.
This is, so, in relation to impact fees, I don't think there's anything that we can really weigh in
Mhm.
on in that aspect. And the tax base, I think we've gone over that, what the tax base is now, the challenges of the tax base now. But until we know what the community wants, I don't think we can do any modeling on how that would change.
Right.
So who makes a decision on what the impact fees are?
Planning board to the selectmen.
Yeah, and we're working on the SIP team as well, right?
Yeah.
So, planning board and the capital improvement planning, right, kind of work with some of that.
Yeah.
But then it's gonna go to the board of selectmen, right?
Right, so the planning
And
board
then-
reviews it, makes a recommendation to the board of selectmen, the board of selectmen adopt it. And there is a public hearing.
Yes, there is. And that's in process right now.
Yep.
Do we know when the last time that there was a change to the impact fees?
2015?
It's a few years.
50.
Yeah, a few years
It's been
ago.
quite a few years, yeah.
And we're using the model that Mr. Mayberry used, right? Which the state
The
uses
last
today.
one was done
Right.
by Mr. Mayberry, yes, and,
We are redoing that.
I think there are some changes in this model, but
Not a whole lot of massive
No.
changes.
no.
Yeah, slight adjustments.
So when I went back to the board with the information from the planning board about the impact fees, because we were partially done, they asked the question, well, who drives development? Who, right? Is it because those impact fees are commercial, residential, so we were trying to look at numbers. So they're saying, well, who drives the development? Is it the planning board? Right? So that's why this committee was formed, to go out and see what the public wanted and have representation from every board here as well. Like you said, fact-finding at this point. So that's what caused, this committee to form.
Yeah, and it was impact fees, but it's also, concern around just development generally, looking at zoning changes potentially, a wide range of things really.
So Kim, do we have a charge, an exact charge for the committee right now?
We do. And it's in one of our minutes. I think the first set actually had them in there as well.
It's on the town website,
Yep.
and it's, on the town website, under,
Go there.
economic development.
Okay.
That's the charge.
Thank you for letting them know that it's there. And we did read it into the record, first meeting as well. Perfect. All right. Does anybody else want to add anything about the formation of the committee and reviewing our mandate? We're good? All right. So, 2 months ago, we had a homework assignment. Just to bring Laura up to speed a little bit, we first have to figure out where we are. So we had a homework exercise our first time to go look at master plan chapters from the planning board. And we looked at key ones, right? Transportation, housing, just to get an idea on that, right? So we all came back and we had a big discussion on that. So we knew I won't say it's part of the vision, right, of the town, of what they want. And those do go through public hearings as well. So that was the first assignment we had, so we gathered that information, right? Because we had to also bring ourselves up education-wise. The second thing we had an assignment was to do a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which we're reviewing today. So that's kind of a open question, because there's things we love about the town. We like the wildlife, we like this many places to worship, we like all of that, but really the SWOT was about economics, right? So we had to look at infrastructure and things like that. So we all had a homework assignment to maybe go off and think about what's our strengths, Litchfield's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as far as economic development.
SWAT.
SWOT, and we do this in business all the time. And again, it's just a data point, right? But we need to see, and everyone went off and did their own work, and it'll be interesting to see how it turned out, when we can maybe merge all this together if we think we should. So, we can talk about this. And how'd you do? Did you have fun with it? How did you, I came up with a list.
I actually looked up SWAT and
Yeah,
like all
is
these
that pretty?
cute little
Yeah, no.
worksheets that you can
Right.
print that are
Yeah.
blank, and then we filled in the blanks. Yeah, it was
And so weaknesses can become a strength later, right? Or a threat could become an opportunity if you fix it, this kind of thing. So it might show up as a negative, but we could flip it to a positive, right? Or something positive could also flip negative. And somebody, like with sewerage, we don't have, that. We have septic tanks. Some people might look at lack of sewerage as a bad thing, but some might like it because it makes us have bigger lot sizes, you know what I mean? So it depends who's looking at that. So it would be interesting to see. I don't know how we want to go about that. I see one posted. Was that Kim Klein? Did you post that one?
As
to the-
just an example.
That was an
Okay,
example one.
just an example. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know if you want one.
It's really very good, though. We did it, and I looked at yours and I said, wow, I feel very inadequate.
Yeah. No. And I did, and mine's an old version of a SWOT analysis that I've just used over the years, over and over, the template. So there are tons of them like
She
that.
stole hers and we made ours.
No, like
No,
the,
she-
like
she
the
made it
template,
originally.
The
Oh,
frame.
The frame.
All the glasses.
It's
Yeah.
all the same route, though.
It is. We're
It
trying
is.
to identify, right?
Yeah.
And we're just, 5-7 people here. I mean, the public's gonna come up with their own,
And I've
right?
seen the public do this
Yeah?
and do it much better than the committee has, a committee has come up with.
Good. Just changing my glasses there.
Yeah, it's often brainstorming, breaking into
Right.
groups.
Yeah.
that kind of
Right,
thing.
and yeah,
Yeah, everyone has their,
some of the stuff you get back is just like,
Right.
wow, never thought of that.
yeah, we all have our built-in biases too, so we'll focus on certain things, whereas you get a bigger crowd, you'll have more of a balanced outlook, so.
Right, we also
Absolutely.
try to achieve consensus
Right.
around certain concepts in the group.
Absolutely.
But still, it's still a valuable exercise even in a small group.
Yeah.
And businesses will do this and maybe do it every 5 years, just do a health check on themselves. So, anybody want to go first, or anybody have a small list, or how do you want to go about this? Anybody want to volunteer to go first? Yeah?
Okay.
Anybody? Do I going to draw the names out of a hat? You want to go?
I can go. I'll
You
go
can
first. All right, you want us to do one category at a time and just go with everyone's strengths
So-
first, or you want to go with the whole thing?
Let me ask you a question. This is the minutes are being done, right, by Matthew.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna take notes on this, right?
Right.
But if we wanna hand everything in, maybe we might
Yeah, we
wanna
could have
merge
someone
our
compile it all.
information later.
Okay.
Okay, or cut these up and then you guys can stick them where you want to on a big board, you know what I mean, so we can see how people weigh in. Okay, so, fine.
So,
Why
how
don't-
about we just
why
do
should
one
we-
category at a time, so we can discuss afterwards if you want.
Sure, whatever, I think that's fine.
Yeah, otherwise it's too much data at one time.
Yeah.
I'll start my strength here first. So, I think a big strength of us right now is our location. We're one of the few, well, we're the only rural developments inside of Londonderry, Hudson, Merrimack, Mitchell, and Nashua. So, if you want rural area, this is where you want to go, I guess, if you want to be near those cities and towns. Tying onto that is actually the fact that we are a rural zoned area. So, USDA stuff does come into play for us. So, it's more of a housing thing, but it's a big plus if that's kind of where you want to get money from. We have that ultra small town feel. So we don't have a main street per se, but we have that. You see our Christmas stuff we do, July 4th of July, all those stuff there. It's a nice small tight community. Everyone gets together and comes out and participates, which I love. Then we have some small businesses in town, like Mel's, Passaconaway, Hidden Creek, McQuestion's. Those all bring people to town to do an activity of some kind, right? Which, if you want any kind of growth in a town, you have to bring people to come here besides just to live, right? Then we have some restaurants. More than I thought when I dug through this. So you got Romano's, Lobster Boat, Day of the Dead, Licks, and a Bittersweet Bake Shop. So all those things are all different, right? You'd think you'd have 10 of the same thing, but they're all different restaurants in the town, so it's a nice variety to have. And the last thing is we have a ton of conservation land and recreation space in town, which if you want to be active and get out and do things, it's great to have that around too. So those are my list of general strengths for our town. What else?
So do you want to just go around the table? Yeah. All right. We had done this exercise at the planning board for the master plan chapter. I came up with a very different list. Like I said, I like things about Litchfield a lot, but I was doing this exercise with an economic hat, okay? So I don't have as many strengths, I have more weaknesses. I'm a ray of sunshine today. But like I said, when we did the planning board one, you were there, we had and like I said, many places to worship. We have wildlife, I love the rural character. I have a big list, but here, I'm just putting on a different hat. So, I'm thinking infrastructure, and I only have 2 out of this list. When I think infrastructure, I'm thinking power, water, land, transportation, and connectivity. That's how I'm approaching this. So for strengths, I said no sewerage is a strength, but it's also a weakness, because no sewerage means some big businesses won't come here, because, I think there's a company that hooks it, like Home Depot, one of them up on the hill, doesn't have town sewers, but they gotta get the septic pumped every month, you know what I mean? So I think, but it's also, it's a strength for people who live here, because they want the bigger property to have a septic tank. So it's a strength, but it's also a weakness. I did say it was a bedroom community of Boston, which would be, again, pulling the economic indicator. So again, I'm just gonna leave it short on this for right now. Yep. So those are my 2 strengths.
Good. Who wants to go next?
Proximity to the airport is a strength. Strong sense of community, very low crime rate. That's what I have.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, location is my top one as well, for some of the reasons that I've said before. It brings a lot with it. We have a highly skilled workforce, high median income for the town. It's a desirable town, so it's a place businesses want to locate and for their workforce, and adds safety as well. I did the point about businesses that are destination businesses, right? So that's a real opportunity to bring in dollars that if we had other businesses that could capitalize that, because people come in to play golf, or we all know what's going on in the spooky world right now, right? So those destination businesses could help other, local businesses.
Yep.
So that's, did you have any, or was that just an example?
I'm sorry.
Well, we can ask Laura too, she's thinking about it, 'cause welcome back, you have a test today.
Yes.
I didn't do my homework because I didn't know that we had any, but
Exactly.
Sure.
2 months ago, we've had time
But
to
I
do
can,
this.
just off the top of my head, when I think, and kind of coming off, Kim, what you said, when I'm thinking of strengths, it's hard to do overall strengths, because I think you have to look at it either from a residential point or from a commercial point. And I agree with all the stuff that people were saying about the residential, the location and everything else. The bike path, I think, is great, but I think all of those strengths are weaknesses for our commercial development. I think our location is a detriment to commercial development, because a lot of people aren't going to come to Litchfield unless, like you were saying, you get a destination business. I don't see that happening right now per se. So I think commercial, I find not many strengths for our town. If the point of this committee is to look at that, I think that's a lot to go into looking at that, to see, one, how commercially developed we want to be, because once we do that, then we're going to tip the scale from residential to commercial, and I don't know where the townsfolk would want that.
And you bring up a good point, because even though we're gonna come up with, looking at the economic side, the town might not value that, right? And we don't know, but
Very
that's
true.
what we're gonna find out. But this exercise today is just to look at this piece of it, right? There's lots of pieces we're looking at, right? Oh, good.
Do you want to share any of yours, Kim?
I think all of mine, all the ones I put had been said. I did say availability of natural resources. we do have broadband access, that, with the economic development hat, that's important. And then our current roads are well maintained. I'm not sure that the structure of them leads well for commercial, trucking.
All good points, yeah, I love it.
Do you want to jump in at all, Jay, or?
I feel like I don't live in town, so I don't know if it's fair for me to say.
Hey, you observe the town, so I don't know if you have any comments.
I mean, definitely, location is key, just in terms of strengths. Pretty obviously, I think, you said it, proximity to the airport. I'd also say proximity to Londonderry, because Londonderry's really emerged as such a critical, critical area. And, so, yeah, the attractiveness of the rural character, particularly along 3A, very, very clearly. That's what's made Litchfield so attractive. Just jumping back a little bit, the completion of the airport access road was huge, because that really changed Litchfield's location. And just getting into data, if you look at commuting patterns, it really changed significantly.
Oh, yeah.
So just as an example, the percentage of people commuting to Boston from Litchfield increased significantly.
Yeah, just crossing the river is huge. It's so much easier now.
Right.
The Everett Turnpike, yeah, it's been,
But I mean,
So.
to your point, it's, economically, all those things are great, but there's a lack of highway access.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's economically, that's the thing that inhibits Litchfield the most, is you're just not gonna see significant commercial.
Even with how
I should
close
say it's
that
challenging.
the whiz is, I mean, it's 2 miles up the road, off the highway to get here.
say that again, what
When you
is,
come across the river,
yeah. To get across.
it's not far, I mean, we don't have access into Litchfield.
Right.
But it's
Well,
not
right.
that far away.
But it's far enough where if you want to locate a logistics center, for example, that's just not,
Right.
this isn't attractive. The other thing you don't have, even though everybody complains about traffic, is you don't have significant traffic volumes. And you don't have traffic volumes enough to attract a significant amount of, say, retail type
Right.
development. So you're not gonna get the distribution centers, you're not gonna get the retail type development.
Yeah.
And the lack of sewer, it's already been said,
Yeah.
you can't support significant density of, office development. So it's limiting, that doesn't say you can't do anything,
Right.
but those are real limitations on what you can do economically.
Even for semi-trailers to get off at the Whiz and come down, that's very tricky. It's very narrow. It's very windy. It's just not a road that's going to lend well to a significant amount of those type of vehicles. So
Okay.
So, yeah.
Gonna pivot into weaknesses?
Yeah, we're on to weaknesses now?
We've naturally gone there, I think, so.
Yeah,
Sure,
we
weaknesses.
had moved on.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought those were
Strength.
weaknesses.
I know, we were. Those were.
We're doing
we did
strengths.
good.
All right.
Limited tax base.
Oh, you wanna go?
I'm sorry, I thought you
Oh,
were going
Good,
this
good.
way.
Doesn't matter.
Are we going this way now?
Go,
And-
go,
and-
go. No.
Okay, I'll go again.
Oh, we started in the middle.
So lack of general retail space, I feel, is a big weakness to us. Lack of commercial development. Most has already been said by us all here, but lack of public transport, inefficient use of agricultural lands, and lack of town services, water, sewer, power, all that kind of stuff are my biggest general weaknesses.
What do you mean by, what I said, inadequate use of agricultural land?
Just the way we use it now. So we have farmland being used. We grow, a lot, decent amount of corn, but not a whole lot of anything else that's typically done and sold in town right now. So, when Wilson's was up and running in town, there was stuff being sold more. And the blueberry, when that was going, that was being sold in town more. But currently, they're not on my list because they're not actively running a business.
Yep.
So.
They're still farming the land, which there's a lot of value in that. It's just not.
No, they
being
are.
sold
It's
in
just not being sold here at all, so we don't really get much extra out of it for sales. But
No, we definitely liked it when the stand was open.
oh, nice, fantastic.
Everybody did, yeah.
There's such a variety of stuff. It's great. All high quality stuff too.
I have 12 items.
God.
And I'm
Should
gonna
we
make
save
it,
you for last?
I don't think so. I think
Am I
we
gonna get
can.
the
Would you like
crack?
me to wait?
No, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do one of my threats, which I only have one at the same time because they work together.
Okay.
I hate to do it. A threat means somebody or something is trying to take something from you at the moment, right? And you can turn it around, but, so what do I say? We don't have enough dollars to incentivize people to come here for businesses. Zoning and commercial, well, there's only a limited few places at the moment. Zoning, commercial, as I said, is limited. Surrounding towns are taking our businesses. Bedford, Manchester give freebies, tax incentives, their workforce. Where do I go to lunch? Where do I go to bank? Where do I go to haircut? Right? There's a lot of supporting businesses. We don't have infrastructure, and we don't support our existing potential companies. So that's my threat. Okay? So my threat is, we're here, but other towns are getting the businesses that we want.
Mhm.
So, threats currently are taking us on, but the weaknesses are gonna list, we can fix them. I think they're short to medium fixes. For the long term, I'm thinking 50, 60 years out, but I'm saying short term, what I'm saying we can apply things to, and I'll be dead by then and I won't care. Just joking. Hopefully I won't be dead. All right, well, I will be. All right, so anyway, so weaknesses we can fix, right? But we do have some. And the only reason I know about these is because I sit on the planning board for like 7 years, right? NRPC, I've seen a lot there, right? And being on the board, I would never be able to have this insight, is all I'm saying. So, weaknesses. There's no motivation for an actual town vision or plan. A town one, not a master plan of the planning board. That's true, it is something. But we have a conservation plan, but we're not working together with a big plan together. So when I said to Diane before, we're competing for the same land, that is a problem, because they have an agenda, commercial has an agenda. It's not the people in the process, it's just a bigger plan, that's all I'm saying. No sewerage, you can't run a big business with septic tanks, and I talked
Can I
about
just
the,
ask, like, when
Yeah.
you said you were competing for the same land, you
Yeah.
mean with conservation versus?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring that up. I'm not mad, I'm just saying
Yeah,
something
no, I was
that
just wondering what-
comes up to
what-
mind.
What you meant.
Yep, sorry, I was reading my pump thing here. All right, this is a hot issue. It's my perception. It's not an attack on anybody, but it's gonna be taken that way. Planning, zoning, and inspection. We have issues in those departments, and they need to be fixed, or nobody is gonna come here. And I'm gonna get into some reasons about that. I do think we had a gang issue with the Manchester-Nashua connection with what's been happening, so we have to be careful about that in the future. We've had some police issues there. I don't think that's a big impact, but it is something just to keep an eye on. I do think we have overreach of other commissions going into other commissions' business. High-speed cable and internet, yes, we have it, but it yo-yos. And I think that's a problem for a business that wants to be here. They need to have, a paragon of connectivity. And that's not a Litchfield problem, that's around. Our town identifies as a farming community, yet we are not willing to help, we only hinder. Go talk to Wilson's, Chick, me, DeRoche's, McQueston's, Redonis, Colby, Normanton, Chick, Boucher, Noel's Tree Farm, Tuckahoe's Sod Farm, right? You just mentioned one other one with the blueberries. Who's left? We say we are of town to support our farms. We are not doing that. I'm being honest, or they'll still be here. So let's say we either are or we're not. We lost a company called Continental Paving because we couldn't get it together here, right? We are hindering our businesses. They're coming in like this. That can change. Let's hope it does. Talk to the businesses near Spooky World. They're going to have another different story. We had photographers that wanted to work in a shed or work in their home. No, no, no. Home occupations, we're getting better with it, and I agree. We have contractors in town who will no longer do business in town. Barons is another contention. I personally felt they were coming here. I know they were finally turned away because of something with the feds with land. But there was contention of who wanted the land for what. And different groups went after them. and I can be honest, conservation, of course wants it. It has the river access. Of course you want it.
No,
No,
that's
hold
not
on.
what happened, Kim, though.
Heritage Commission wanted the house, you know what I mean? It just seems like everything was going against them. Let them get here first. They didn't even get to the board yet, and people had demands.
There's no house on that land. But,
I'm not talking about houses.
okay.
I think Noel's Tree Farm is gonna be another one, but that's gonna be a collision with the traffic for the pre-found homes. I'm gonna leave that out. All right. I think what saved Litchfield in the past was that railroad being on the other side of the Merrimack River. That's why we were, locked. Because Bedford bet their town on commercialism, Merrimack's doing the same thing. But I think it's what's killing us now, is we did not do that, right? We're next to Londonderry, maybe. So, Bedford, Merrimack, Goffstown, Amherst are all tied to the Route 101 economic corridor. Amherst is just too inconvenient right now, and same with Goffstown, but it's probably gonna come. But we're not next to that, is my point. I think Litchfield probably is gonna become Little Hollis or Little Brookline, if we don't get businesses here. They're affluent towns, but no real commercial to count. That's just my vision. Litchfield's divided. We have a southern part of town that goes to the south streets, a northern part of town that go north. We have really 4 small villages in our town. We connect at the dump. It's very cross-section is the only thing, right? When I say I'm having a winery on 3, they go, where? Where's that? They don't travel here. They either go out 102 or northern end of town, right? So even our government offices really isn't central. They think, so anyway, it's a perception we can fix, is what I'm saying. There's no more land. I don't know about I know there's some land, but the land is shrinking. So what's left, a lot of it's compromised or wet. Conservation is good, and some of the larger chunks probably need to be flipped to residential. But even if it is already residential, there's gonna need infrastructure and roads built to get there. So, what did I say that? I'm on number 12, the final one. We have no access to common infrastructure. There's no roads from a high-speed place like the highway to get directly here. Yes, you can get off at the Raymond Reazorg Drive, but you still have to go through. It's not like you're coming off on a highway ramp and here we are, come to us. And that's a good thing for somebody else. Somebody's gonna say that's a strength too. All right, so I'm gonna sum it up with my thing about infrastructure. We have power issues. Big companies who wanna come here might have a problem. Manchester doesn't, they can just plug in. So I wanna look at power, water. Do we have available water? Land, do we have available land, transportation, and connectivity. So I'm looking at those 12 and I just think I've drew an unhappy face on my chart. So that's what weaknesses can be turned around. Let's hope we do it, but I think long-term, we're gonna have to do something radically. We're gonna have to think radically, and I'll get into that later. Okay, that was my big list, the rest of 102s.
So, we came up with limited tax base, limited commercial area, no public transportation, and I also have here, town not seen as easy to work with. As far as competing with land, I don't think that should be something, that's something that works together. With Barron's, the conservation walked that land. We were all for Barron's. We tried to help the gas station when it was having a problem with its curb cut, which meant giving up some conservation land so that they could have an additional curb cut, which they didn't end up needing or using. Conservation's been very pro working with developers. Barron would have been a great thing for conservation because they were going to give us the acreage that was on the river because they don't want to deal with it.
Right.
And it abuts existing conservation. Conservation is very important in town, but it has to be supported by a strong town. I mean, so if that means we need more commercial land to be developed, then we need to all think about how every board can help with that.
That's where I said we need a town plan, not a conservation plan, not a planning
No, but-
board
but
plan. We
before
really
we
have
say
to
that-
think bigger.
I
That's
just
all I'm
wanted- I just
saying.
wanted to correct that
Oh, no, I'm glad you did.
conservation didn't
Yeah.
do anything. And Noel's has been sold to a new tree farmer who's gonna be farming trees there.
Good.
Their families are tree farmers. I'm actually gonna be interviewing them next week for the What's Up page.
Good.
Yeah,
That is good to hear.
so.
My big ones are the same about tax base, zoning, no Main Street, kind of natural place for small retail shops to go to. Housing would be the other one, for affordable or workforce housing. the same time, we can draw in from a lot of other towns. It's not like we're far away from some of those things, but, here in Litchfield, there's not much.
There's some coming, though.
There is?
There's 172 units on 102. There's
Those aren't gonna
100.
be workforce.
They're not
houses,
workforce, though.
They're not workforce.
Oh, they're not
houses.
workforce. That's the
No.
prefab ones that are coming.
Prefab
I
ones
didn't
are
know.
coming,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's good. I don't remember how many that was. It was
It was like
100 or 80.
54,
Yeah, I had 64 in my
Those
head.
Stables.
And they're
in
like,
addition to what's there now,
Yeah.
which they'll be.
So they're
improving.
200,000, and that's what's considered workforce housing
yeah,
these
it's
days.
200,000, I mean, it's really affordable, and they're brand new
Yeah.
modular homes, so
But the townhomes are probably more affordable too, the 172 that are coming.
those are gonna be,
They're more affordable
Those are
than
gonna be
buying
all-
a single family.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
well,
Right, but they're all
that's
gonna be
rental.
rentals.
Those are all rentals
Oh,
right
Yeah,
now.
those are all gonna be
Is he making them all rentals?
Yeah.
all of
All
them.
Those won't be
172?
sold for years, yeah.
Yeah, they're all rental.
But the ones at the horse farmer, those will be, well, we're not sure.
We're not sure.
It went
I
in
think
one
it's gonna
way.
be
yeah,
some-
we're gonna
Yeah.
Those will
figure
be
that.
higher end. though.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're nice.
Because they're gonna be they're gonna be three bedroom, I think.
correct.
Yeah, I mean, the ones on 102 are not gonna be high end.
Right.
They're good, it's gonna be like Caliber.
Exactly.
My turn? Again, and I think I just struggle a little bit with this exercise, just because I think the goal for the town would need to be front and foremost, so then you could, once you have the goal, then you can figure out what our strengths are, our weaknesses, our opportunities, our threats. And again, I'm going back and forth with the commercial and residential, because those are two sometimes competing goals. And Kim, I agree with everything that you said, but we do have a master plan, and that master plan really, I think, should be our vision for the town, because that takes input from everybody. And there's some towns, like I was looking at Auburn's master plan, and they don't really want a lot of commercial development. They like that small town feel. They like the ruralness of their community. That's not what they want. So again, until we figure out what our goal is, I struggle with, what our strengths or our weaknesses could be. If we're talking about economic development, streamlining the development process is something that we should always strive to make it easier, to make it simpler, to make less burdens or obstacles for people to come in. And that's the planning, the zoning, the heritage, conscom, all of our land use boards need to be on board with that. And Continental Paving, I wish we could get them back.
I know.
That would be great revenue for the town.
I know. That's why
A
we
lot of
gotta not
registrations
make that
there.
mistake again.
I think he started moving his registrations back to town, hasn't
He's in Londonderry,
Some.
right?
For,
he? He is,
for the
but I think
trucks
he's
that are
still
here.
registering some of his trucks here. That's a
And
good
some.
question for Terry.
He's split, mostly Londonderry though.
Yeah,
No, it
most
is
of
mostly, because I worked in Londonderry, and
Most
Yeah,
of his
it's
trucks are
mostly
there. I
like-
thought he had brought some back. That was a long time ago, guys. Long selectmen boards back.
But I'll call, go ahead.
no,
Laura.
I think it's absolutely something to look into as far as from a revenue standpoint, and just supporting our business and supporting the farms. If that's what the goal is for our community, is to maintain that agricultural feel, then I do think our zoning would need to be reflected to help those farmers, whether it's some type of tax incentive or something with them, then we should do that. But again, until we know the goal,
Yep.
it's kind of hard to figure out
Wants.
where we should go.
I think a lot of the farms you referenced, though, were people who just sort of aged out, for lack of a better term, and didn't have the next generation that wanted to do it. I mean, Wilson's is still there, and I think they're gonna be there a long time. I know they grow a lot of stuff here and sell it down in Lexington. They make a ton of money off of it.
So if that is true, which it is, it
There's
is
all
true
kinds
what
of
you're saying,
rumors. There's all kinds of
then
rumors.
then we're not a farming town. If the farms are gonna go, we need to say that.
Right, and if the farms are gonna go and that land's gonna now be
Right.
developed, and most of that land, because we got our commercial up top, we got our commercial in the bottom, and everything in the middle is residential. And if we wanna keep that residential rural feel, then for a zoning point of view, we might wanna consider some type of form-based zoning so whatever developments go in along 3A helps to keep that feel, whether it's a business or anything else, we wanna consider that as well.
So,
Anything you? Yep.
yeah,
Can I, at some point, pick
Oh,
up on a
yeah.
couple of Laura's points?
Sure.
I don't want to speak out of turn, though, so I want to keep Laura, just throwing it out there.
So I think that normally when, a town looks at this exercise, you're looking at the region and not just the town. And we don't seem to do that. So you need to look at what the needs are of the communities around you and build off that, right? There's your niche. There's what you can add to the region. And the region here is southern New Hampshire. And some towns have done it very well. I mean, Londonderry happened to pick up on, and they ran with it. Merrimack, somewhat, they're doing better now. Bedford, absolutely, right? They saw the need in Amherst and Brookline, and because where do those people go to get their needs met for commercial? They drive into Bedford. Bedford played off that. They knew that they had that niche. We haven't found our niche of southern New Hampshire. But to do that, we need to look outside of the borders of just Litchfield and look at the region. One of the things that bothers me, and I think Terry too, I mean, is losing the business of those motor vehicle registrations. But there hasn't been much investment in town resources. So when we put out the tax rate the other day, we put out a chart with it. The normal kind of balance of distribution is schools 60, around 60, 65. Your county and your town make up the rest. County's generally pretty small, 3-4%. Did you see we're 72% education.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that because I'm a huge education freak, so don't take that the wrong way. But you're not investing in your town. You have 3 people in a highway department that really needs to be 5. You have limited, how would we register all those trucks? Look at our town clerk's office. You talk about, working on planning and streamlining that process. That's staff here in town. And we just did this exercise today. I was in Concord with a bunch of municipal managers, and they said, everyone raise your hand who has a full-time planner. Everyone around me is raising their hand. So we need to invest in town services in order to really accommodate anything you're gonna do, whether it's commercial, residential, whatever it's gonna be. And I don't know how we're gonna do that, because that's a very difficult conversation to have, and especially with a tax cap, and I'm not weighing either side of a tax cap. I'm just saying, we put a position in, and maybe it might pass, but it's, a half-time here, a half-time there, half-time, so this year, I think we're having the discussion, and just with the budget being so tight with the amount that the tax rate already went up for 2023, they're very difficult conversations to have. But at some point, and you don't have the space, right? So unless we build a new police station, we don't have the space to put any more staff over there. And when you talk about things like, water and all this takes resources we don't have, but we also got to be careful about raising the tax rate. So it's a delicate balance, and to Kim's point, you have to have a plan to do this instrumentally. And we don't have that. So I think that's part of the selectmen's concerns in wanting to build this, is not only what does the town want, but how do we get there? And that's gonna mean positions, that's gonna mean structures, maybe that's changing our regulations, but, I just haven't seen that, and I haven't seen us really look at having that bigger conversation about the region. Because maybe it is workforce housing.
Well, we're glad we have our regional director right here. No pressure.
Aren't you glad you came?
Always glad to see you.
All right, Jay, you're up.
All right, well, I mean, I was just gonna, I think I've already talked about kind of like what the weaknesses are, but, to kind of comment on a couple of things that Laura raised, because they're absolutely right. So, just backing up a little, I spent many years working in economic development. I don't know if people know that, but I was the city's economic development director in Nashua, same thing in Manchester. I worked in Springfield for a while. I've done it for a long time, and one of the things that is really clear to me is you have to understand what your goals are. And there are communities that I worked in where when they talk about economic development, their number one goal is job creation because they've got high unemployment. There's other communities that are really low income and they're focused on wealth creation and creating intergenerational wealth. And that's a different set of strategies from a focus on job creation. Some communities are all about trying to attract businesses in, and they focus on marketing and promotion and branding and all that kind of stuff, because that's their big issue. They've got sites they want to see redeveloped. Some communities are all about a struggling downtown. So how can we create strategies around reviving our downtown? And so all of those things are different goals. And for communities like Litchfield, very often it's about tax base. So if you're focused on tax base, then you've really got to be saying, okay, if that's our number one goal, then we all understand that. It's not the other things so much, it's that. And you really got to focus around what are the highest value, basically real estate we can attract to or develop in town. And you can look at that on a per acre basis. What's your highest return that you're going to get in terms of tax base per acre? And what do those uses look like, or per square foot, whatever way you want to look at it, and then start focusing on strategies around that. And it could be that, I could say, just working in a town recently here, the highest per square foot value they have is major retail. And that's true in Nashua too. If you just look at the per square foot of building, you go down to South Nashua, that's where your value really, really is. It's true in Hudson. It's the Walmart in Hudson, Sam's Club. Those have really, really high per square foot values. We know we're not going to get that here. If you look at Hollis, it's the $1 million homes. Realistically, that's what it is. And some communities are just all in on really expensive residential real estate. Maybe that's the bang for your buck, because the impact of a $500,000 4-bedroom house is really the same as $1 million 4-bedroom house in terms of cost to the community. One of those realizes a whole lot more tax value than the other. So I'm not saying that's what Litchfield should do, but that's just kind of what you got to think about is, if it's all about tax base, what realistically can we attract and what's the biggest bang for the buck? And
So Jay, with that, trying to build larger homes, would you want to say that the house lots would have to be larger? So instead of building on a minimum of 1 acre, would you say that you had to build on a minimum of 2 or a minimum of 3? Would that bring in bigger houses that are going to have more bang for your buck? Or are you going to then take out the people that would have 4 different houses for $500,000 each?
right. Well, first of all, I'm not saying that that's
No,
what we
I'm
should
just
do.
wondering. I'm
But
just,
no, not
you know, I mean,
necessarily,
it's,
because you could go.
yeah, I don't know. That's
There's
why
many
I'm
factors
asking.
that come into it all.
And then I'll give you an example. You probably know better than I, but if again I'll look at Nashua. One of the some of the highest real estate values in Nashua aren't really that low density. They're like Sky Meadow. So those are just really expensive condominiums. Some of them are detached, some of them aren't, but they've got the golf course, they got the view, so it
On a
doesn't have
postage
to.
stamp.
Right.
Right, so
They
it doesn't
are
have to
opposed-
be that you've got larger lots.
Okay.
But you think about like, the things that, so if that's the strategy, then think about what are people who are basically spending $1 million plus on homes looking for? What are they looking for in the community? What are the amenities that they like? Sure, golf courses is one
course.
of them, right?
Yep.
But you know,
We have two.
do they like scenic views?
1.5.
Do they like, you know, convenient access to, you know, that's the thing to start to think about. If that's the goal, then let's think about the strategies that you would get. I can say, homes in Litchfield are a lot more expensive than when I first started working around here. This town used to be considered where you went for starter homes. They were building, you know, pretty modest homes. That's not true anymore. They're building much more expensive homes here. Well, how come? And what else is it? You know, do we invest more in pickleball courts? You know, is it tennis court? I mean, what is it? So that's just the kind of, you know, that's the kind of thing I think we want to start to think about. And if one of the things that people value about Litchfield is the agriculture, that farm sense of the farms and the rural character, then you do want to think about, okay, let's think about that. Let's, you know, we want to keep
Recruit.
Wilson Farm, right? We want to enhance those kinds of things. So that was just kind of a long segue, I guess.
That's a good one.
That was
So-
great.
Yeah, that's excellent.
That might be the strategy the town wants, not
Right.
strategy, but they may just want to be little Hollis and little, you know, and it could be, I don't know.
But, you know, to your point, or maybe it's, okay, let's really focus on trying to create a main street, right? Is that possible somewhere in town? So maybe that's it. You know, there's different strategies, so I was throwing out one example.
I look at Bedford though, Bedford used to be nice to drive through. And I think they ruined their town, but I understand why they did. And if you look at the value of their town on paper, you know,
Right.
it was huge.
They have a nice long road though that's, you know, been widened a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, probably 70 or 80% of the businesses are on that street. You
Right.
get off that road, whatever it is,
It's all residential.
It's
beautiful back there,
Historical,
you know?
and, yeah. Yeah,
But
you're
the
right,
traffic they
driving
have
through
now
that-
on that road is insane, though. It's
It's
just
not the same
nuts.
feel.
No, you gotta go up and around and get back down.
Exactly.
To get
So
there.
that's
I
a
know.
problem you have if you have that much development over there.
And that is gonna be a problem for us. I mean, that is definitely in there with the weaknesses, is that our roads are so narrow, they're so small. They don't lend themselves to
And we have one
4 lanes.
main road in town, really. You can't put business on Albuquerque, right? Nothing can go on Albuquerque. So you got 3A
So-
and, you know, a quarter mile of 102.
And, you know, do we wanna get agricultural businesses back? Do we want to try and recruit those people back? I know we've been trying to build roads with, Jasper and Hudson and, talk to different farmers and trying to, like, Noel's has purposely sold to somebody who will grow trees there. It was important to them, to do that. Maybe we need to find those new farm families and how we're gonna do that. So that's another thing that we could definitely be surveying. I know we talked about, you know, if we open up that zoning on 3A, that, to 2 companies that would put farm to table, or those things that are kinda, you know, are they kitschy, are they gonna last? You know, the breweries, the farm to table restaurants, those kind of things, are they gonna last? You know, trying to put, if we do open that up to commercial, that we try to keep it in that venue, but
But I think to your point, Jay, we have to realize too what our weaknesses are and what can we as a town support. Right? So do we have the services to be able to support that commercial base? Or is our niche in serving really that more residential base, right? So we've, concentrated, we have excellent recreational, right? But that doesn't really serve to the commercial base. It really serves to a residential base, and those pickleball courts would attract people that are willing to pay for those higher houses. But definitely one of the problems we hear about in southern New Hampshire more than anything is the lack of housing. And that's lack of all housing. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, Arlington was like one of the, right, that was a suburb of like Boston, and everyone bought their houses, and, but they didn't really, they had restaurants and things, but it wasn't a big commercial base. Their niche was residential. And
Yeah, due to
people
proximity to
drove.
Boston, right?
Right,
Yeah.
people drove.
No, people down there are tearing down $750,000 million homes to put up $1.5 million. It's crazy. Because land is like, doesn't exist. So, tear down a 2-bedroom, put up a 3-bedroom, and that's how it goes. It's nuts. So,
My mom had a house down in the Keys. And you want to talk about land not being existent? They literally were done issuing building permits. Done. Closing the office, we're done. No additions, no more lots, no more nothing. Done.
Build out.
yep.
Build out.
It's built out. They're done.
You guys want to transition to opportunities now, since we're starting to get there, I guess?
Remember, weaknesses we can fix. That's how I
Correct.
started it, right?
Some of them we can't. Some of them it's just who we are.
Right. We might just become home and farm,
Like
whatever.
public
It may be.
transportation,
We
I mean-
don't focus on commercial. Maybe.
Never coming.
No, it's not coming.
No, we're lucky if we can get an Uber.
Well, it's definitely not come from the state, but it could come
Where's
for other
Litchfield?
things if we have a reason for it.
I'm
So-
sure there's a.
That's true.
Well, I'll just start with opportunities, I guess, then, based on what we're talking about here. So, I think a big thing we've all brought up in certain ways here today is determine a true community identity, right? Most people would say farming or maybe Mel's, right? That's what we are, right? You come here, you see all the farms, whatever else. But once again, you can't buy as much stuff in town now at the farm. So, you just come to drive through. You're a leaf peeper, essentially, looking at farms, or you want to come here and actually get something out of the town. Next part of that would be marketing the new identity that we come up with, right? Find a way to take whatever Jake's points are here as far as who do we want to be, and then go sell that to surrounding towns, developers, and have them come to us now with hopefully a good plan to go through planning board, building approval, and just have it happen, right? Possibly develop a town landmark. You know, what do we want to be, right? Pick, I'll say, the eye in London, right? Some crazy thing we had that people know us by now, and that's why they come to Litchfield. That's what they think of. Or do a big recreational build out to have, okay, we have this great area that we can do pickleball tournaments, basketball, football, so whatever it is, right? So say maybe make Dara much bigger, right? So it can support more than just a couple of things here and there, all right? Redevelop worn out, outdated town space and buildings. If it's not historical so much, raise it and put something else up, right? Or go ahead and develop, once again, a tough one here for us, but town services, water, sewer, power, that kind of stuff, if we want to go a more commercial route. So those are my kind of opportunities we are at this point in time.
I only have one.
You are the storm cloud today, Kim.
No, because
You're a
if we
storm cloud.
Raining over there?
No. Because again, I'm focusing on the infrastructure, right? I've just said if water infrastructure could be improved, I think that's an opportunity.
That's a good one.
I don't know if it's an issue, a
It's
non-issue
huge.
or not for commercial, but anyway, I added that as a potential opportunity.
Well, it's huge for commercial, neither for fire,
They need it.
fire and stuff like that. So it's a big thing.
Yeah, that's all I have for that.
Look at a couple. So, one, even though we talked a lot about the limitations that we have for commercial, I do think the northern commercial zone is an opportunity. There's land up there that could be redeveloped, or developed, and I think thinking about what that could look like. Our biggest traffic counts are from the intersection of Albuquerque North. But that area, and when Mel's is an attraction, people do come to Mel's. So there's we know we've got some attraction there, and although we're not there yet, we've got an improvement to the Corning Road intersection in the 10-year plan. So I just think giving some real thought to what's that mix of uses that makes sense up there. So to me, that's an opportunity. The farms are an opportunity. Agribusiness is a thing, and maybe thinking about how can we boost, agribusiness. So we keep the farms, but we have a broader range of things people could. I remember Wilson Farm was the place, we all went to. That's where you got your pumpkins and you picked your berries and whatever and bought your jam. And that's a thing. But there's a lot of agriculturally related or agribusiness related activity that we don't tend to see here, but is possible. And those are people coming to a lot of farms around the region, do events, they do weddings, and have function rooms. Obviously if you've got a winery or brewery, people are doing tastings, they're doing functions, there's equestrian related activities, there's a lot of stuff that you could do. And so just kind of thinking about that, and to your point, are there ways we could leverage it even further? If you came to go to visit one of the farms, what do we think about some limited opportunities where somebody could go get a bite to eat? You want to be able to go get an ice cream. Or maybe you want to have an overnight stay. Glamping is something. Breakfast, right.
Oh, we got
Glamping
some,
is
we got
something
some
we
glamp, we
see
have.
I don't think it's glamping over there. It's
I don't
a
think it-
yurt.
Right. But what we're seeing that in some communities, there's one I work with where they've been very open to allowing agribusiness related activities. So they got a large horse riding rink in, a horse riding farm. They've allowed outdoor entertainment and concerts. They allow bed and breakfast on the farm, and they've allowed the yurts and that kind of thing.
Okay,
There's another community I work with that throws out
Kind of
every
like a
beer near their
teepee-ish
wrist,
tent kind of thing. Yeah.
So they don't allow bed and breakfast. They do everything they can to block them. They make people who want to do glamping, go through 20 different hoops and don't allow more than 2 people, 2 stays. They make them go to the zoning board. They make them go to the planning board for site plan review, and it's like it's 2 tents.
Right.
So that's just the kind of thing to
The
think
tent's
about.
gonna go here.
Right. But if we start to think about what are the things we want to do, and then think about, all right, how do we enable it, right? How do we allow people, to actually do it? So those are opportunities. I think there's less of an opportunity than I used to think, but, maximize 102. We ought to really be thinking about.
Get a
how
farmer's
we-
market going. Those
Yeah,
kind of
I mean,
things.
Just a market in
102.
general, farmer, crafts, everything. Just
Dude, I'm in, I'm 100%
Oh,
in.
we have an ordinance drafted. Just saying.
I'm just
Say
saying,
that again,
this is a
Just
prime
saying.
example of why
We
there's
have
problems.
Yeah.
And not to
Yeah.
mention, the farming.
Well, let's figure
You
out how to
have-
fix it.
You have the most
we know what they
fertile
are.
soil
Oh.
in the state, right
Well, I
there.
know.
So
I
to put
know.
a house on it, you just go.
Preaching to the choir.
It is,
I'm
the
the
New
farm
Hampshire
girl.
colleges have come to the property. How did you get this land?
Right.
It is the most fertile.
It's true.
So to
And
build
the
on it.
last thought is kind of relating more onto the residential side, but I do think investing in recreation really is that is an important draw. for people.
Satisfaction.
And there's some things here that are really great opportunities. I think Albuquerque is great, but that side path is really pretty wonderful. There aren't too many communities that have something like that. I think it gets a lot of use. So how do we expand on that and connect that? And for years people have thought about a loop with 3A. Is that something we could ever realize to create, a really great trail system
Yeah.
throughout
We're
town?
working on that,
It's
yeah.
nice to be able to go up and down, but
right.
to have a real system that really links things would be
Into
a
the
wonderful
library.
thing.
Aren't they trying to do that with some of the businesses that are going on 3A now with the gas station, is to have them put a
They're trying to tie in.
tie in the
We are
sidewalk?
tied into
Yeah.
conservation there
Yeah.
too.
And there were things that have been talked about for a long time, like the old trolley line.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that's broken, if you know the one I mean.
Yep.
The 3A.
Yeah.
I mean, pieces of that are broken,
Tried to
so
get
it's
it
kind of
back.
hard, but,
So I have other opportunities too. We are, got a new relationship with the Chamber of Commerce with Hudson. I found that out from Chick Woodworking. And I'm gonna be also interviewing him tomorrow. His store opens, this weekend. Tomorrow's a soft opening, so I'm gonna go and talk to him and get him on the WhatsApp page. The WhatsApp page has done a lot for local businesses, kept them in front of the local people here. It's something that's expanded everybody's businesses, in town. We do a lot on that page to make sure that there's no bashing of restaurants and businesses and things like that too. But that new Chamber of Commerce is an untapped resource for us as far as getting involved with companies like, or places like that are gonna draw new businesses into town. Yes, we want you. I was talking to another business owner. They're renting space up over where Lobster Boat is. So I mean, there's still land over there to be used as well. There's still quite a bit that would lend itself more to those bigger type of things because it's a bigger road.
And it's got higher traffic volumes.
It's got higher target. And mine, agricultural businesses is like huge for me. And our biggest opportunity is outreach into the community for this survey. That's gotta get done and how and when? What can I do to help to get that going? The survey.
We're still doing the analysis, right? We're just doing our
Yeah,
rehomework first.
I
That
think we
definitely
put
is
some
coming up.
ideas out there
It's
on the
definitely coming up, yeah.
portal and,
Yeah,
This
That's a huge-
conversation, I
you know,
think, generates a lot of things to put on a survey.
Yeah.
yeah.
but, you know, if I can play a little off of Diane without cutting. So one of the, and I'll be honest, one of the hesitations I had about, exploring this committee, and I think I voiced it to the selectmen, is Litchfield doesn't have a brand. You think it does, right? And you hear it in town. We're a farming community. Go outside of Litchfield. Go up to, and you know, I'm constantly traveling around the state talking with other municipal leaders. What's in Litchfield? Like, so it's
Spooky
not
World.
as well known as you think it is.
Yeah.
You have to create a branding strategy for the town. An absolute must is a website and a real communication system, official system of the town. That's a must. You're really dead in the water without having that.
So you're talking about a site where people would go to find out all the businesses that are in town?
An
Anything.
official website of
Yeah.
the town.
Okay,
Not just a town office website, an actual town website.
yeah.
A town website, which is, I mean, generally,
Schools,
it's generally run by
Whatever.
the government. No, schools is generally their own website.
okay.
Generally, schools is kept separate from
But
the
when
town.
when we
It
were
can
looking to
come off,
move
but-
here, we
Yeah.
went to the one page and
Right,
had all
they
the,
kind of give you up what the town's about.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one thing. We're kind of working off of integrated systems right now, and even the systems that we have aren't really talking to each other, right? I mean, we're trying to bring the rec page over to the existing town website, which has a lot of limitations. So really developing who Litchfield is and branding that out through an official communication that speaks officially on behalf of the town is key.
The perfect question for them. What, the citizens, what do you think of when you think of Litchfield? What would you want your brand to be?
Right, and it's and you know, what access to information do they want? Right? I mean, I hear it all the time. I get calls all the time. I can't find this information on your website.
Making it easier to use.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. But you know, let me answer your questions. But it's an issue. Is the town is just kind of, and it's great that the townspeople have Litchfield What's Up, that's not representing the town to the state. I mean, that's not. what
Bring
they
up a
look
good point,
for.
because I just work in Manchester, and people will go, where do you live? And I say Litchfield, and they go, where's that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where's that?
I don't
Yeah,
think
get
of
it all done.
what Litchfield is, right? We're not known for that.
Spooky world, really, Mills.
Well, they know that, but they don't know where that is.
And they will.
Oh, that's in Litchfield?
That's in Litchfield.
Oh, I
Maybe
know.
we ought to put a drive-in
They
back
think
there.
it's-
Everybody knew where we were when we had the drive-in.
Exactly.
I actually.
That might be our community identity. We want to be those driving
Don't
again.
know Litchfield, but they
Certain
have
type of
spooky
brand.
Yeah,
Yeah, the swingers.
yeah, all the time.
Right, all the time.
Laura, did you have any opportunities you wanted to add?
I do.
Oh,
If you
I'm
want
sorry,
me
I
to.
just want to go back before we forget and then move on to the
Did you
branding.
wanna go?
Not yet, but go right ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I?
So again, this is just feeding off of
Yeah.
everybody else. But I think the biggest opportunity and the thing that I keep going back to is, what you said, determining the identity, branding, it's all the same thing. It's all the goal of what we want. I don't see Litchfield ever becoming a Londonderry or anything else like that with a Walmart or any type of big box stores like that at all. We really don't have a lot of town landmarks, because I've looked into it to kind of see if we could market that. We have some stuff around the church, the old church on 3A, but nothing major that's going to be a huge draw. We go back to what you said about the niche. I think our niche is agritourism. I don't see us having really any other niche except for agritourism. We have the river. I think the river and the agritourism, whether it's weddings or glamping, I'm not too fond of. I do think I'd want some permitting on some glamping. Sorry, I've seen that kind of go a little bit sideways if you don't. But I think our niche is the opportunity to grow through agritourism. And, my sense is when you ask people what they want here in town, people aren't telling me they want big commercial development. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing tax base. I don't want to pay a lot of taxes, but I don't want the gas station going in up there. I think that gas station's a great idea, but people don't seem to necessarily warm up to those type of things for commercial
They'll get used
stuff.
to it.
No, and I'm not saying they won't.
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
I'm kidding.
but
They will,
I
we get
mean-
used to stuff.
and they do, but I mean, if you're just asking, I think
Yeah.
people's, and this is just my view, that's why we have a whole bunch of people to give their own, people that I talk to, I think they like the residential feel. I don't think they want a lot of stuff in Litchfield. That's not the sense that I'm getting, but I'm just one person with my own, limited viewpoint. And I do think the recreational stuff is very important, because I think that's one of the things that tie into our rural community. I don't think Litchfield will, in my opinion, will ever get away from being a rural community. I think that's who we are. And do we want people to know who we are? People may say, no, we have Spooky World, but we don't want people to know who we are. We like being, again, a farming rural community that, if you look us up, you're gonna see green pastures, you're gonna see this, you're gonna see a couple of stores, and that's it. So I think, again, if that's where we are, we have opportunities, depending on what our goals are, to expand on our marketing, our identity, and whatever the townspeople want.
You're saying our main asset is that river and
And I do think that's a niche
that
for
area,
us.
the economy. You had talked about the northern commercial, the northern industrial.
No, I was saying the northern commercial zone. The northern industrial, I think, is a real question mark.
Why was that industrial? Could it flip to
Because
commercial?
It was a giant excavation site.
Oh, so could it become commercial? I don't know. I don't know
Well,
the
I don't
land
know.
rules on that.
You mean,
Well, no, I mean,
But if you wanted to have commercial
how
up
long
in
is
that
it gonna be
area,
active?
Right.
And then when it's no longer active, what should it be? Yeah, that's something to think about.
you talk about the brick, is that, not the brick, what's that thing? That, I see it, that yellow dirt pile back there. What is he doing?
Sand and gravel?
The sand and gravel, is that where he gets
Yeah.
industrial?
We have lots
because
of sand in
that?
town.
Yes.
But he has other properties around that.
Well, that's a different story.
So
I
could
mean,
they flip?
There's no question that he's got thoughts about that property.
I thought he
But
was
Miss-
gonna be here tonight.
He did want to come, but I don't know.
Oh, that's too
Yeah,
bad.
I had heard he was gonna be here.
Oh,
are
that's
we
too
talking
bad.
about Rick Charbonneau?
Yeah.
Because he owns all of that property.
But if we really, the model we have, keeping the businesses on both ends of the town, I love that model, right? So if it's, it's industrial, but is there a reason, and maybe there was back in the day, could it go commercial to keep the commercial stuff out, keep it up there, right?
Right. I think that's a conversation we should have.
I think if you're looking for I'd go to November 2nd, 2021. Planning board minutes.
When he came in with some ideas of what he wanted to do.
When-
He wanted mixed
Yeah.
use up there, right?
I mean, I can share that
So
concept.
September and November was the time frame. I had reached out to him and then we canceled the last meeting. So I'm not sure if he knew that we were meeting again tonight. You know, I think there was some definite ideas that he had that.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted mixed use. Was that the commercial section or the industrial?
Well, we had talked about he definitely, so there were a couple of things that came out of that kind of, those initial meetings. So it was 2021, and the concept really was, and I'll share what was shared with everybody. But basically, he came in with an engineer that he works with and did a presentation showing all the properties that they control and talking about the range of uses that we currently allow. And it was a conversation around, so we allow these things and basically these aren't gonna happen, they're not realistic. Here are some other ideas of commercial uses that you could allow. And here, you know, basically are some development concepts, and one of the things he was absolutely looking for was to be able to develop residential on a lot of that commercial land. And or mixed use, because there was definitely an interest on the part of the planning board to say, you know, let's look at least at mixed use. And so that conversation was had, and we actually drafted language for zoning amendments. But at the end of the day, there was real concern that we weren't quite there, and so that didn't go forward. Some of the other changes, though, did. I mean, the permitted uses were changed in the northern commercial zone. They did expand, you know, they did increase kind of the number of things that were allowed. And the other thing that was done was the zoning ordinance was amended to allow something like Barron's to happen in that area. So there were some things that came out of that. But the piece that did not move forward and still has not moved forward is, do we allow more residential, multifamily residential in that zone? And so that remains.
That was part of that, right?
Yeah, that was part
Yeah.
of that question.
I wonder if he feels the same now that he's got the 172 units across from 7-Eleven.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, because, I mean, at some point, you know, I don't want to speak for him, but at some point, he's gonna want to develop the property that he has up there, so how should that be developed? What makes sense? And I think that is something for us to think about, because that has long-term implications for Litchfield.
Yes, on all town services, on the schools, on everything. If all of a
Everything.
sudden we have, you know, I don't think what he's doing on 102 is gonna impact the schools too greatly or anything, just because they're gonna be rentals, 2-bedroom, probably not a lot of kids, and if they're here, they may not be here long. It may be, you know, somebody may move in for 3 or 4 years. My own personal thought is I think it's gonna be a lot of people who are selling a big house and still wanna live in kind of a rural community and have a decent place to live. You know, cause from what I've seen, it's gonna be, you know, quite a complex over there.
Our over 55s, we questioned whether or not we needed any more of those, and they're full to their max. You very rarely see one of those go up that's not snapped right away, and the prices on them have soared. I think they were in the 200s to the low 3s when they first came on, and they're selling for $455 and more, right?
We have like 6 55 and older communities in town, that's a lot.
They're
I think it's
packed.
8. There's a lot.
And there's other communities that have now removed their elderly housing from their zoning because it's too much, and then you get the workforce housing that's now tied into the elderly housing, so that's all gone now.
Right, they removed it?
Well, the legislature, I think last year,
Yeah.
was saying if you don't have workforce housing, because some communities don't have workforce housing in their zoning, that whatever you have for elderly housing will now apply, those same requirements are gonna apply for workforce housing.
Right. Yeah, a number of communities have pulled it.
Right.
Which is nice. It's nice that it counts.
What's that? Well, by state statute, you're supposed to have requirements or
It's not
reasonable,
that it
realistic and
counts, it's not
reasonable
that it
opportunities for
counts, it's
workforce
that
housing.
If you provide, say, density bonuses or any kind of incentive for elderly housing, you have to provide the same
Same.
incentive for workforce.
Workforce.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, that's not great.
Right. But then by state statute, we're supposed to
But
provide
now we have some.
reasonable and realistic opportunity for workforce housing on its own. Or if we don't, then you have to look at the housing stock to see if we have certain housing stock that will then meet that requirement.
Which we now do.
I think we do.
Opportunities, one question I have is that with Barron's, you're right, I met with, people that were selling Barron's the other day, discussed some stuff with them. But they did talk to me in depth about that state coming in and overreaching, and I think it was a 2-to-1 acreage that they had to give them back for any wetlands. As an economic development committee, or as a town, how do we go to bat for these companies or these landholders that are trying to sell to commercials? I mean, Barron's would have been great for us. How do we go back at the state and say, you have taken away an opportunity for us to make that tax money, to improve our town by an overreach? What we feel is an overreach. Conservation thinks it's an overreach. We were being given like a nice little slab of land down by the river. How do we as a town help the businesses that are in town when they, I mean, the curb cuts that are the companies, DLB has faced that, the gas station faced that to the point where, like I had said earlier, conservation was looking at how to give them enough land so that they could add another curb cut. How do we fight with the state about them? If Renee had packed up and gone away rather than to have continued to try to meet all of the obstacles put in his way, state obstacles, how do we fight that? That's a problem. That's been a problem with two businesses that are large and gonna create revenue.
I don't think we can if it's a
Yeah.
state road. If, I mean, it's shall span across the state road, then the town would have to
Is there
take.
any way to go to the state?
There's-
and
It would be
have-
lobbying and a whole bunch of other stuff to have them change
There's a
rules based on
reason
traffic
for
counts.
curb
It's
cuts
not a
that
fast
they
process
allow
at all.
Plowing, yeah.
I think it's engaging so probably reaching out to the Department of Business and Economic Affairs and letting them know. It's not easy.
But we've had these discussions and so there is a reason for the limited curb cuts, and there's safety reasons, there's, maintenance reasons, there's many.
But it is gonna be another really bad weakness for us then. Is it the size of the road that's
But
causing
our
it?
main road.
Correct, on
is-
3A
is
and
very
102 will
limited.
be an issue for us, absolutely.
And I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, those rules were made in 1972.
I believe they're
It's like 40,
very old.
quick math, it's 45 years ago or 50 years ago. Things have changed. Trucks can stop now. I mean, I know 3A is really thin. I gotta think there's a way to widen it at some point, if need be.
I don't know,
To
I just
that
wonder,
point, we don't have
how
the
we as a
traffic
town
counts to
can
really
advocate.
support it. Right.
I mean,
The one-
it's gonna start looking, we're gonna see a lot of differences. So you're gonna see differences when the gas station goes in. That's gonna,
Yeah, and I know Continental's gonna use that too, because he's got diesel on the side.
Exactly. exactly.
Yep, so he's gonna use that for his trucks.
So it won't necessarily be widened, but we're gonna see more turn lanes,
Right.
coming in. So it's gonna start, the character is gonna change.
And that's on the 10-year plan, but is it year 10 on the 10-year plan? Because there's a lot of ideas flowing around, but we have a lot of problems that are linked, right? That we gotta knock them off kind of one at a time in order to do this. It may be, like you said, Kim, I hope it's not 60 years, but it may be 20 years before some of this stuff can be done, before you can get sewer.
If ever.
Yeah,
If ever.
Especially with how, 3A is so close to the watershed
The
there.
river, yep.
You had some opportunities, right?
Sure, a couple
Agree with
more.
you, by the way.
This is certainly regional, just the changing demographics of the region and thus the town. I think anytime that happens, the increased diversity brings new opportunities, so something to consider what may be here now that wasn't here in the past. Kim kind of touched on it as far as home-based work, right? Certainly remote work has exploded, but you just don't need as much to run a small business as you did previously, right? So if there's ways to kind of leverage a changing workforce that can work out of their homes, that is one. So I appreciate a couple folks have talked about recreation, because I certainly, subscribe to that theory for sure. But a couple things on that note, so our fields are really good, and pickleball, obviously, the facility talent is probably a weakness. It's old and it gets a lot of usage, and so like changing that into a community center at some point would be kind of in our long-term plan to diversify the use of it. But then if you have a building like that, right, it can be a hub for a lot of different activities, including economic development ones in town. But the larger point I want to make is about the opportunities around planning and pursuing grants or other federal funds, because we have a story about Talent Hall with that. I'm always on the page of if we can find other taxpayers to pay for it, that's a good strategy to go, because federal taxpayers, the tax has already been applied, right? It's not about saving taxpayers money at that point. It's about can we bring it here to Litchfield and procure it. With talent, that's been on our radar for a while. One of the federal economic relief pieces through COVID, we learned that there were some funds that qualify for community centers or something of that nature. But we weren't able to apply for it because you need to have a current plan for a facility. And so we missed that opportunity. And that jumps to me out as an opportunity that if we can have some of these plans, kind of shovel ready or on the shelf ready to go, current, that could be a way to bring in some of these resources as an alternative to going to the tax base, right? The bike path, it's not under the jurisdiction of rec, but it's probably like the best rec asset in town as far as the number of people using it. My understanding is that came out of a federal relief package from the Great Recession. And so like there's a history of like we can bring things in here, and these last couple of awards with COVID and ARPA, pretty flexible in how some of those funds could be spent, let alone the infrastructure bill, which is still kind of rolling out. I would love to see us kind of in a position to take advantage of those things. I think it's beyond the current staff capacity we have in town to like research those things, apply for the grant, manage the grant, but to the point of how can we invest that brings in actual dollars that fund some of these pieces. I think that's an area to look for. Similar story in education, right, for our schools, right? There's often state or federal funds available that if we match or bring in, we can decrease the impact on the taxpayers, but get the benefit of that development in the town.
Awesome. Thank you.
I mean, just to comment on that, but I think you're absolutely right. That the Talent Hall thing and that community center grant it just killed me, honestly.
Sad.
It's just like really sad, but it really does underscore as having that plan for whatever it is that we want to do, because every one of these that has come up, what we find is that the dollars start flowing, and there is this huge push to get them spent. So everybody wants everything spent, in 2 to 4 years. And we got the congressionally directed funds back. They're all looking for projects that could be implemented in 2 to 4 years. And if you don't have a plan, there's no way that you're going to get there.
Or
And
purchase and sale.
it's tough because that's an investment too. I mean, it's not free to get an actionable plan.
Right.
So I don't have the answer to that, but you're absolutely right. You've got to have it. You've got to be ready. You've got to be ready to have a good story.
I'm just gonna open it up to public input. There's nobody, just procedurally. I don't see anybody online, so.
Did we do threats?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
All right, so nobody's here for public input, so I'm gonna close it. Close public input. All right. Oh, do we have threats?
We have threats.
Ew.
I guess I'll kick us off here. I think my biggest threat I see in town is this fear of change in the community. So if we don't want to change, whatever we propose will go nowhere regardless. So we need community input, whatever we decide to kind of give out here, and act on that, like we're all saying here now with the, we need a plan in all areas to capitalize on what's going to happen in the future here with us. So another threat is competition from surrounding towns and local businesses. We may not be able to do the big stores, which we also may not want, which is fine. But we don't want to lose the small stuff that we could actually provide for. So that falls back more of our marketing stuff, right? Go ahead and find a way to market those people that have come to our town. And then, so possibly, another threat could be if we overdevelop all real estate wise for residential use, we now have a even more off-base tax base than we really want to get into, right? So as Kim said, was a 72% or so is schools. If we do more and more housing, it's gonna get worse and worse in that same regard. So we have to balance these out a little more to kind of, have more even keel. So if we want to go more homes, we can, but the problem could be tax rates gonna keep creeping, and that's the way it goes. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I already read it. It was the surrounding towns are taking our business. We have to give them tax incentive for freebies, no infrastructure, and then if a company wants to be here and they need smaller supporting companies around them, they're not here. It's really my only threat that I had.
I'll just say, a lot of that, and I think we said that, loss of the farmland, I think is a threat. It's a continuing threat. It's always been, I guess.
That's my number one, loss of farming, continuing zoning issues, continuing planning board issues, things that don't make it easy for people to come in and do business here. Being squeezed between Manchester, Hudson, and Merrimack, and the town valuation that Kim brought to our attention that has gone down. So those are some threats to our way of life.
Yeah, getting beat up by other towns regionally that are capitalizing on some of those opportunities for businesses or other investments to be made, because we're competing for the same pieces, right? So losing out to other towns, the agricultural piece, that one I struggle with as far as it certainly is a threat, and a threat to our identity, because I think that's kind of what I'm hearing is what we believe is our core identity, even if it's not further afield. The piece with that is that, and this is where I just don't know as much, how much of this is like kind of the countervailing winds that are much bigger than what we can control here in Litchfield, right? As far as aging out of, some of the owners of the farms, or if it's just not economical. The agritourism piece is really interesting, because you think about what the farms are now that are doing well, McQueston's and number in Londonderry, like it's an experience, right? And they've really done well with that. But as far as kind of what we were with farming previously, right, which was more access to the foods, right, that's not the same as it was, and it's more about the experience. And as that industry changes, are we in a position to capitalize on that?
$30 a bag to pick your own apples.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like the word threat, so we have no threats. I view it all as an opportunity, so I have nothing for threats.
Okay, well, those are opportunities.
That's right.
Threats. So, I did say that the permitting and the zoning and planning board and not having a clear, I think that was brought up to me, by some residents my second day here. My second day here happened to be a planning board meeting, so, so I do think I think that a lack of available housing is a threat as much as it can lead you in the same direction. Unfortunately, I happen to believe that we don't really sit in a good position other than the agritourism for real commercial base to move in. And I think you can develop a residential model that will at least assist in bringing services, doctors, nurses, things that other communities are having problems housing, but we use those services too here in Litchfield, right? So it's a win-win for those people to live in your communities because they can't find the housing in the places that they're working. So I do think that's a threat, not having that available and not opening it up, and not having a permitting system that these developers can really get through very easy. And then the other thing that I think is a threat that is on Kevin Brown and my front view mirror every single day is stormwater. you have a threat there.
It's an invisible
Uh,
threat.
It's an invisible threat, but it is a threat in the MS4 permit and, you know,
So tell me what
We
an
deal with
MS4,
it
why
every
do you
single
think that?
day.
'Cause I'm not sure I understand the threat of stormwater.
because the cost of maintaining a system and staying within the limitations that are set by the MS4 permit, is more than we can deal with here at town hall. I mean, and we've been doing an okay job. Okay,
But what is it? I guess
the
I'm missing
MS4
that.
permit?
Yeah,
It's a federally required permit through EPA for discharging stormwater, and it has become, fair for me to say, it's become, I don't want to, I'm struggling for the word, I was gonna use the word onerous, and I don't know that that's fair, but it's becoming increasingly challenging for communities to meet stormwater requirements,
Because of the way our stormwater is dispersing?
it's not just us, it's everybody.
Everywhere.
No, but what are we talking about? Stormwater from rain?
Yes,
Okay.
but stormwater is seen as
Culvert,
a
catch-
major, if not the major, non-point pollutant source.
Yes.
So kind of if you look at the way EPA has evolved, we've gone after the big bad polluters, discharging directly,
Mhm.
you know, focusing a lot on sewer discharge. But stormwater is where so many of our contaminants are coming from. And so the onus is now on municipal stormwater systems to make improvements
And
to
we have
how we're
none.
treating stormwater. And I don't say we don't have any,
No.
we do.
We have
It's
culverts.
We're doing a whole asset management program right now and going out and
So would those be
documenting them
culverts, though?
all in culverts, catch basins, you know, piping
Okay.
the whole structure.
Okay.
We're documenting all that, we're inspecting it, we've done over 500 inspections, well, not we, highway department, I bow to you.
I don't think I even knew that was going on.
So we had a huge
I said
workshop.
invisible.
We had a
I
huge
didn't know it
workshop
was even going
yesterday at the
on.
fire station. And it's a big task. And, you know, we've been doing our very best with it, but there are, you know, larger communities that have staff just designated to this. And here it's Kevin and I and NRPC when we reach out and, so Sarah was here, I think it's Sarah?
Yeah, that was
That
Sarah.
was here yesterday, but it is, I think, a threat because we are definitely behind, where the EPA wants us to be. And when you have a culvert go, Chasebrook, $70,000 that cost us. Thank heavens we had gotten bridge money from the state. Otherwise, we wouldn't. That road would probably still be closed.
We had one go at Nessencake too, right? Didn't we have a big one go at Nessencake? Like years ago.
Culvert?
Didn't we have like a big?
We had the big one.
I don't remember.
You might have before
long
me.
ago?
Wouldn't surprise me.
I thought we had, yeah, off of Albuquerque and where Nessencake and Albuquerque. I thought there was
I
like
think
a,
you're right. That was before me. Yep.
yeah, there was a huge, like, it took a while to fix it.
Yeah, Kevin talked about the one off Albuquerque,
Yeah,
so I'm like,
yeah.
that's what you're talking.
Okay.
But, so.
So
but-
what could we have to do to, more storm drains, more, what could we have to do to fix that?
So, in a way.
Right now you're evaluating what we have, but what could we have to do?
In a way, we have to create a CIP plan just for this system. Once we get all the information, we've documented, we have to come up with a plan for how we're going to repair these over many years to come, because, but that's a cost that is invisible right now, Jay, you're right. No one talks about.
Yeah?
Bring up a good point, though, because the impact fees, we need new houses or new businesses here, right? It's coming full circle.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I've never seen, they've never been addressed, so you never talk about impact fees on stormwater.
Oh, I'm not, I don't care about the line item itself, I'm just
Oh.
saying in general.
In order to
The
pay
items,
for it.
to pay for it, it's
Yeah.
based on new development, right?
Right.
So that's.
But that should fall on the roads, shouldn't it?
Who's
So-
driving what, right?
Would it be in the road?
Wouldn't that fall on the roads and hiring there and equipment?
So it's, I mean, when it comes, for new development, obviously, increasing the tax base is the goal, right? If you wanna pay for more stuff. With new development, they all have to meet updated stormwater requirements. Of course, we do have to do updates to our regulations to make sure that new developments coming in comply. So that's kind of that piece, but yeah, I mean, end of the day, it's gonna cost the town more money to
Right.
make these improvements, and that's gotta
Yes.
come from somewhere.
So we need new development.
And if people saw the, I
We
don't know
need
if
more
everybody-
impact
tax
Did
bills.
everybody see the survey results of the last survey that we did? Were those shared?
No,
Oh, I'll share those with everybody.
yeah.
I mean, this was like 2 years ago we did, the survey on, basically for the capital improvements program for the CIP. The reluctance of people to pay for stuff is, it was quite,
Is that the one that had the recreation facility in it?
it had everything.
Talent? Yes. So
people
Joan had it.
had
It
anything.
was large.
You
There's
know,
a few things.
You know, there's a
There's
lot of
that-
Yankees in this town, right? They
Right.
might spend
I
money.
mean, there was a few things people supported, but yeah, it was interesting, and when you started to read through the comments, it was really especially interesting to just kind of hear people's thoughts. And even things like, you'd think in a survey people would support a fire truck, but, no, but, you just kind of go through it. There's a real, I mean, it's to your point, but there's a real reluctance to spend.
One of the concerns that I think builds up further is, the budget committee mentioned the other night, they want us to look at user fees and increase permit fees and, across the board. Okay, but you're hitting the same people that are already here to some extent, and then you're deterring development in another step. So you want to be really careful about raising those fees while you're working on whatever plan the town is going to want to move in. Because that might be something you want to work in, and Kim's right. I mean, there's a lot of communities that, we give pilots, we give whatever to bring in new development, and that might not be something that's in Litchfield's wheelhouse right now. But if you hit them with higher fees, that's gonna make a mark. So,
Jay, an interesting contradiction is like the surveys come back saying people don't want to spend money, but then if you look at the results of our last voting elections, they vote everything in.
We did, I was.
So, which is kind of,
We always vote.
It was a really small part of the population that goes to vote, though.
Right.
It's like they don't get the fact that voting
Is-
creates increases in your taxes.
especially at the March election, which is key. But like you talk to people, oh, I don't want to spend, I don't raise my taxes, but then you look
Did
at
you
our-
vote?
But,
No.
but then the
That's
people
what
who
they
do
say.
vote, I mean, our last, town election, I think everything passed for what, 2 ballots? I mean, 2 articles, and it was it's a significant increase in some of those items, and people voted in, and I don't know, Diane, like you're saying,
That hit the What's Up page the other day when the new tax rate got published. It was like, oh my goodness, my property tax is going up
And then someone
several $100s.
Someone had the nerve to say, no, it's not the tax increases that we vote in, it's the reevaluations of the property. I was like,
well, I think it's a combination of both.
reevaluated property.
we haven't, yeah. I mean, and that's what Kim was really nice. You reached out to me. I'm not quite sure what to do with all the information you gave me. Gave me a ton. I learned a lot. And we all do whenever those questions come up.
That's a hard topic, and you had an individual that was out there that knows what he's talking about. I don't know if he lives in Litchfield, but
For the most part, we try to keep people that live in
but
Litchfield
he,
on that page.
yeah,
It doesn't
he
always
was
work.
trying to do a good job, but I've definitely seen that subject go wrong.
I definitely referred it back to town hall. I definitely referred it back. I was like, I'm trying to make sense here, but I know I'm wrong, so don't ask me.
And it's
But-
hard. It's not an easy one. It's got a lot of
No, it's
moving
not.
pieces.
Does.
But I mean, people's taxes went up hugely this time.
Right.
And we have some big ticket items that are coming through. But a lot of the things that were on the list that you handed out, the survey that was done on WhatsApp, a lot of these things are being done by grants. They're things that cost, like, the taxpayers almost nothing. The river access, nothing. We had a lot of, these were things that we were able to do by committee. Because you can get a lot of people involved to do something in this town, to make it better. Track, I mean, you put up the flag and you get people to come and help out.
That's what happens, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Spirit of Litchfield, they're looking for people right now, but, we do that well. It's definitely a strength of our town. It's just how do we not keep this SWOT information, how do we get the most people to see it and hear it?
So the survey from 2016, I think it was accurately entitled. It was, it said community improvement. I think that's right. I looked through most of it. Most of it had very little to do with really economic development other than, add natural gas and things like that. But those are, to some extent, when you say add natural gas, it's sometimes things out of the town's control. If it's worth it to the utility, it's worth it to the utility. If it isn't, it isn't. We had a section of Nashua that didn't have natural gas for a long time down exit 1, and we tried and we tried and we tried and we tried, and they said when it benefits us, you'll get natural gas. When it doesn't, you don't. It's just how that works. But it was a great little poll. I think that if we're gonna do something, it has to be multifaceted, and I think it's not just a Survey Monkey, send it out. Although I have to say, our Survey Monkey for energy, community power, is going great.
Yeah, 'cause something made me do it before I got something else. That's
Oh,
how
it's the
come.
landing page on now the town site. You can get past it.
I didn't though, I took it. I took it.
Can't get past it. Have to do it.
I
so
did take that.
That's been doing really well. But I think going out and talking to people, if you can get people to,
But
Engage.
can we, the
Engage.
GMS thing had 7 people that weren't,
sad.
involved as far as being a teacher, a school, board member, or a principal. or
It was
something.
more than 7 people, but it wasn't real well attended anyway. It was mostly people who were
Really
directly.
hard.
But I think there are, with the school, there's a group of people that are dead set against it, and there's a group of people that are dead set for it. They didn't need to go.
Right, but how do you get people, but there was other things they wanted to talk to about that there. They wanted to talk about if they did get a school, what would they do with GMS land? And there wasn't enough people there to really
Right.
have a discussion about that. Now, there's gonna be a social thing coming up if we can keep, Litchfield, Spirit of Litchfield going, where there's gonna be a social thing over at Dara at Christmas time, like there always is. We have hundreds of people literally come out for that event. Is that someplace that we could do that with? I mean, we're just not getting traffic at a lot of those other things where people want input. People are asking for input in different boards and everything. They're just not getting participation.
You're right though, and whether
We
that's
used
the
to-
right
we
event or
used
not,
events,
going
yeah.
where people
We used
are.
events.
You gotta go where they are. Like your
You've also
monkey,
gotta-
I had to go see, in order to get something else I needed, I had to go to that place. So I think that where is that place?
I mean,
You know?
surveys are good for that reason, because it's easy for people to respond wherever they are.
Maybe we hand them out as people come in, I
One
mean,
community I work with, one of their strategies for their master plan outreach was, you gotta be limited, cause there's only so much time anybody has, but it was getting volunteers down to the dump on Saturday with iPads. And they just a handful of, hey,
It's not a bad idea.
And it can't be 30 questions either, it needs to be 5 or 6 questions.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing, people are there, it's pretty random, it's not
they're there
self-selected.
registering their cars,
We did
registering
we did
their
the
dogs.
landfill.
Yeah.
We did, everywhere, farmers markets,
I'd love to have
You know,
one
if
of
there
those,
were
has anybody mentioned having
parents'
one of
night
those?
at the schools. We were out there at parents' night at the schools, getting parents as they came out.
Yeah, that is what you gotta do, you gotta go where they already are.
I mean, McQuestion's has been just jamming the past few weekends. We call Christy and Matt and Charlie and say, can we come down there and talk to people as they're, waiting in line for although you can't guarantee that you're getting Litchfield residents. at
Right,
that
that's the
point.
hard part with that thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's probably a lot of people from out of town as
Yeah.
well.
But I will say, when I've done the in-person forums, because it's common when we do master plans and things like that, and you do the Saturday morning thing and the whatever, we're struggling to get people, and the people who come usually have an agenda. They're not a cross-section of the town, they're there because they're either
How do you get
really
those quiet
against
people?
something,
Yeah.
or they really want to push something, and it's kind of like, well, you do it, but you've also got to understand walking away, I'm not getting most people here, because people are
I'd love to
busy,
get
and they got stuff going on in their lives, and they're at the kids' sports game.
the
and
young,
whatever.
the young parents are really tough to reach, and they have really strong views about stuff, but they don't know what's happening because they're so keyed into having to get that 48 hours worth of work in and getting their kids to the games and all that kind of stuff. They're very hard to reach.
Right, I mean, it's when when something
sporting
directly
events.
affects your life, right?
That's a good one.
Like the property next door to you that you always thought was protected land is gonna be a subdivision. That gets people out. But if it's, cause it's gonna, right, cause it's gonna directly impact you, but if it's more abstract,
Right.
it's just.
Not in my backyard.
The Boy Scouts are going around this weekend to put the pamphlets out for the donation of food.
Mm-hmm.
So the Boy Scouts are doing that usually, and then I think they're bringing in the Honor Society this year or something. Is it worth of something? A task force going out to every, we go to every home and putting something in, I don't know, you can't touch the mail, but something on
When they do hang
On the
it.
flag or doorknob?
Yeah, we put pamphlets, flyers out.
If we made an
yeah.
effort, that everybody divide out the streets, you do that,
Right.
Need boots on the ground for that.
Tax
away?
bills, haven't you? Put in something in it.
Can
or
you do
not
that legally?
Yeah, you can't by law. They got us on that. You used to be able to do that, and then the state said no more of
That's what you
that.
get. And you can't get them at the front window when they come in either? You're only gonna get.
Oh, we can at the front window. We got the community power out there right now. When people come to register their cars, you
Yeah.
certainly can.
But
But
they're only coming the one time a year for that kind of stuff typically, so timing's gonna be off.
yeah, and
you know?
people will pay the 2% or whatever it is to do it online.
Yeah.
People then that's to Diane's point. There's so many people that they come to Litchfield to do their kids' homework, eat, sleep, take their kids to school the next day and leave again. They're
in startup mode.
they're
they
not
really
here
are.
long enough to, maybe on the weekends to do things with their children or go to a recreation event, but their lives are busy.
But I remember being in that. I mean, we didn't get involved in town affairs until much later. I mean, he coached. I did every volunteer thing for every school, every baseball, whatever the kids were doing. I was backing that up. But we were much older when we started to get involved in town politics. To the
That's typical.
being able to assist more. Our kids had to be out of the picture more.
Yeah.
You know.
Not enough time in the day. I was picking kids up from sports, copying pumpkins, fitting some dinner. Then I'm over here
Dude, I get it.
after work. So it's just the way it
But you're
goes.
the rarity that actually will come out at that.
I guess I probably am, but
You are.
if we can get more boots on the ground to find people like me or just anyone who wants to be involved and get their input, would be fantastic.
Just their input would
Get
be
the
so
input. Just
valuable.
get it.
I mean, I'd love to talk to those people that are canceling their vacation because of they just realized what's happening with their escrow accounts on
Yeah.
their tax bills, they're all of a sudden they can't
Whatever it is.
do this now. I mean, those people are kind of voiceless. They're just, we gotta live here, we're not going anywhere else.
If we could spend some time to find the best bullet points of upcoming events that are community-based and market to those would be fantastic for us
It's
right
at
now.
Town Hall, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
Town Hall always have something going on there?
We have a couple community events in December.
I just
Yeah.
mean like the kids playing basketball, anything
You know,
else.
schools, parent-teacher
Like,
nights, all that
there's a
stuff
play coming
happening.
up at school, which.
School play, yep.
Right,
Yeah.
that's an opportunity.
That's definitely resident.
We have a soccer jamboree coming up in a few weeks, the big sporting event. There's lots of out of town also, so it may not be the perfect event for us, but there'll be lots of people there. What else we have?
You gotta think about what is the it, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah, what
Are
is
we gonna
the it?
give them a flyer, are we gonna,
Just-
what's?
Well, but the flyer can be go to the website, right?
Well, yeah, the flyer can be flashy.
QR
than
code on
If
through
they have to
website.
do something
Right.
else, you're risk losing them.
Correct.
Just knowing it, with it's me, you risk losing me. If I've got to put it in my pocket, look at it later, remember to sit down at the computer, remember to, all of a sudden it's more than one
QR
step.
code, do it, yeah.
I
You
have,
can do it right on your
and
phone.
I lose a picture.
Huh?
It's the phone. You gotta
Yeah.
have something that they can do right here.
Yep.
Short, brief, it can't be, you
I
lose
agree.
them after
Take your phone,
20
hit the QR code and
questions.
answer 5 questions.
Yeah.
The QR code.
We could just do posters that have the QR code on them, and that's it. Just scan this, please.
And
Take 5 minutes and get it done for us.
properties
That's right, that's what we gotta do.
That's probably the best idea.
Easy.
Where would you put the QR
Those
code?
5 questions.
On a poster we
Where
bring
is-
around with us.
where?
Yeah, whatever.
Put them at the building,
Like
libraries?
Community Power did with the little pamphlet. Here, you can keep this,
Yeah.
but scan this code right now and just answer these 5 questions. So
Right.
they scan the code, they can take the pamphlet, maybe they don't look
Jay
at
had
it later,
those,
but
had
maybe
those
they
QR
do.
codes are at all of our conservation lands now, so that people can
Right, to report a problem,
damage.
right?
Yeah, so that we know if there's a tree down or
So the
whatever.
code just goes to the
That's right.
monkey.
Goes to the
That's
website.
Survey
Right.
Probably
monkey.
the way to go.
Wicked
Yeah.
easy to use.
If
That
we
is
get
really
another
easy
meeting,
to
we
use.
could like actually craft those, what are the 5 questions or whatever that we wanna get.
The elderly have a harder time with those, but we do have access to those over 55
Yeah,
communities.
we could print them too to have as the backup for
Yeah,
different
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
You give people choices, they
Yeah.
can go to the website, they can respond to a paper survey. I mean, again, I don't want, you don't wanna put too much work on people, but sometimes that's why having the tablet and the survey right
Yeah.
there.
I like that, I like that
You
idea
do it,
too.
You enter it,
Yeah.
it's done.
Show me your dump sticker and I can ask you questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do at the Household Houses Waste Collections. We've got it on a tablet, it's a survey, and, what town are you from? What'd you bring today, kind of that, and then it's entered, and then it's automatically tabulated, which is also really nice.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
it,
absolutely.
like it,
Very
like it,
nice.
like it.
So choice, I guess that's what it comes down to, is depending on where, if you're at the dump, that's probably the easiest way.
Right.
Are we gonna ask them what they think their strength is? Just joking. We have
Not
5
asking you, Kim.
We have 5
Not
questions
asking
though.
you at all.
No, but we only have 5 questions, so we have to really,
Yeah,
Get
I
as
mean,
much
5
or
or 10.
6.
I
Yeah,
think-
whatever it is.
I mean, community.
Or 7.
We did 10 for community power, and I don't think it's that
Ten's not
long.
bad.
Yeah.
But they're fairly easy.
So long as it doesn't, yeah, so as long as it doesn't take more than a few minutes to finish it.
Right.
and-
Then we smash it everywhere that we can, and say that we're gonna be out there doing it too. So that when people see you out there with this, they're not surprised by it. You just smash it
Yeah,
everywhere.
if we had 10 questions or so with a sliding scale, a 1 through 10 of how you feel about this, just real simple to answer that in seconds, and you're done. So no,
Right.
if they want to have a note section too, sure, but just answer 1 through 10 and be done.
you might need an open-ended question, right?
Correct.
But
It's
yeah,
always-
yeah.
Yeah, you always give them a chance to comment.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think if everybody could think of a few questions that they'd really like the answer to, then I'll bet you that a lot of people would have the same thought, and it'd be pretty, it could probably come together, right?
That'd be awesome if it did. That'd be great.
Yeah, or like, oh wow, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
There's that too, which is great too.
Okay.
Because to Laura's point, we have to know what people really want before we can sort of set a plan. Because if people want development, that's one plan. If people want to say, you know what, we're happy not having businesses, let's go another direction and limit growth.
Right.
I mean, the two ends of the spectrum.
Sounds great.
So just number 3, are we gonna, you want us to sum up these and put them somewhere together, or are we just gonna walk away at this point, or what do you want?
I think it would be good to have them all, everything listed.
So we type them in or scan? We can scan them, right? Can we scan them?
Yeah,
We can scan them in, right?
okay,
If you, or email it.
Yeah, I'll email you mine.
okay.
Then at least we have
We'll
it,
put 'em all
that,
together.
except we don't have your, you have you on,
We've got the
the video.
I'm
Yep.
sure it'll make it into the minutes.
Okay.
I mean, at some point, it might be a good idea to maybe try to get people to come and give some community input.
A lot of people don't even know we're doing this right now.
Right.
It hasn't really gotten out yet. That we're
Well, I think
doing
if everybody who's on their board mentions it sort of either at the beginning or the end, or at some point during their meeting, that we have this committee and we're looking for input.
Yep.
Give the link or the website or whatever.
It's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll gather them together and we'll, I don't know where we're gonna store them, but we'll come up with that later. We did discuss the community outreach survey, right? So flyers or maps, Survey Monkey, and community conversations, right? And QR codes or whatever. All right, so we're good?
Yeah, we covered it all.
So I think.
So our homework is what? Go away and think of questions?
No, what, have 3?
3 each, 4 each?
Come
Well,
up with
well,
3
what?
and we take
As
the
many as you
best?
can think of?
And we take the best and
Yeah.
Okay,
get the survey.
very good. All right, so.
There's some other towns there on the portal that have done this recently, links, just if you can't think of a question.
over
Not
here.
all of them really relate to Litchfield, but Glasshouse did an interesting one.
It's 15 pages though.
Glasshouse, long. They had maps for every question.
And that's just,
So,
it's
Where,
overbearing.
and I was like, how many, but they had a lot of residents take it, so I don't know how they did it. I
Maybe
don't
they're
know.
smarter than me,
There must have been
but they have more time.
something riding on it.
Maybe they want less used car dealers. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe that was it, but maybe there was some hot topic in the town that they were.
That was a
Yes.
driver, yeah.
Probably what. And before the next meeting, I'll send out, the information that we got at the planning board meeting in 2021, so everybody has a chance to see what those concepts were.
Awesome.
And they passed zoning, they did pass. Some of them were zoning changes and they
Yes,
passed.
But
but
not-
we
not
also
the overarching
right,
thing
we
that
also
they
had,
wanted to do.
We had a couple of nice presentations showing the properties and, a potential development scenario, so I can send that out.
That'd be great to see.
Did you wanna go over this exempt land, or no? There's something in the portal.
No, I think it was just answering the question that came up
Okay, good.
at the prior meeting.
Good.
It came up in a
Oh, well, I
meeting
got
we were
thrown out of
at
my
this
meeting.
morning, and, we're relatively low.
So
If you look at some other communities,
I would think that's true, yeah.
Greenfield.
I had asked how much property is undeveloped, commercial property is undeveloped in town.
Yeah, that's a good question. Do we have that answer?
What was the question? Sorry, I
How
was.
much commercial property is undeveloped in town?
So we had that nice map right here that Kim's gonna pass out to all of us digitally.
Yes, I'll send it digitally. NRPC, Cassie did it. It's a wonderful. It has undeveloped land is white on
Okay.
it.
Is it
so
all
you'll be able
kinds?
to look at it.
Or just
All
commercial?
kinds.
All kinds of stuff. Residential, commercial,
To overlay the zoning
recreation,
map
you
on
name
top
it's on there.
We
Basically.
would have to, yeah.
But you can
Yeah.
also do it, you can go to Map Geo, and, I could send everybody a link to that too. So if you go on the Map Geo site, you can look at land use, you can look at zoning, you can put whatever layers you want, and you can actually zoom in on the parcels themselves.
Oh, yeah.
See.
Laura, good point. See, everyone scan that
It has a QR code on it. the map.
Ah, look at that.
Perfect.
Love those QR codes.
So that's just a really
I'll
good.
email it.
Does it actually go to that
I
map?
don't know.
It goes somewhere, hopefully.
So I can send you that.
Here it goes to.
But the other thing that you wanna look at, which is harder to do on just a map easily, is you've got undeveloped commercial property.
Yeah, if it goes to that map, put it on camera.
That I would say is underdeveloped properties that could be redeveloped at a higher
Attach that to the survey.
use.
Right.
So,
Like Warren's is closing now.
It is.
right,
What is that?
right.
I wanted to talk about.
Is that an NRPC link?
We're not supposed to
Oh, NRPC.
Yeah.
specifics of stuff.
Yeah, maybe we can get the link
But
directly there, you
Well,
know?
we could make one too. If
We can make one.
Yeah.
Not the information on all the properties, that's, we can kind of talk about some of those.
Okay.
We've also got,
It sent us to your, the website.
That's
Oh,
where the code
nice.
goes. But
oh,
I
but
think,
not found. Oh,
I think
was
the
not
page
found.
isn't found.
Ooh, all right, that's good to know. The other
could
thing
put that
is,
on the
is
survey
you've
if it's
got
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a lot of houses that
That
are
would
still
be nice.
residential in a commercial zone. So those have
Right,
the
that-
potential to
Okay, right.
redevelop over time also, so.
And
there's a lot-
sometimes
there's
they
a lot
never
to
do
look
if you drive up and down Hudson. Oh my God, those people are still living in those houses. I don't know how they do
I know,
it.
just like, yeah.
Squished
Well,
in.
we saw that where we're from, that there's a mall and then next to it there's a house.
Right.
You know, the people just weren't gonna leave.
Yeah.
There's some on 102 going out, the same thing,
Yep.
all over the place. Little house, stuck between two big stores.
So does anybody have any other business they wanna discuss?
I was kind of excited about the Chamber of Commerce thing. I
Yeah.
thought that was
Yeah.
Absolutely.
kind of unique. I mean, it's with Hudson, but at least they've invited Litchfield to participate, like we exist.
No, that's good. Absolutely. I didn't even know they had a chamber of commerce.
Well, I mean, we're talking about commerce,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
How do you, I guess I'll go to a meeting.
Yeah.
I'll come-
Isn't it
I'll come
attached to the back
and
of
say-
Citizens Bank? I think they have it.
I thought there was one down that way, near T-Bones. Wasn't
Yeah,
it back
it's
there?
on the
It
back
used
side
to
of
be. I
Citizens
don't know if
Bank.
it's still there.
Oh, it is? Okay.
I knew they do stuff like those flyers that go out with like coupons.
You'll be our liaison, you'll find out.
I gotta find out. But
So
All right, you
next
just volunteered.
agenda
Good job.
items that we have, right? Next
I'm
agenda
tired of
items are our
volunteering.
questions, right?
Yeah.
it's getting
All
worse and worse.
Well, it's up to you. Anyone else want to discuss anything else, or we're good, or take a
We're good.
motion to adjourn if anybody would like to do that?
I'd like to process a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Yay. Oh, sorry. I was supposed to vote.
Yay.
Any discussion on adjourning? Who wants to adjourn? Raise your hand if you want to
All in
adjourn.
favor?
All in favor, yeah.
Aye.
Everybody
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Very good. All right, thank you very much. When is our next meeting, just so the public knows?
Ah, yes.
Is it the last Wednesday of the month?
Yes.
It is, yeah. Okay,
Which is
29th?
that day here.
29th.
November,
November 29th, 6:30 here.
what day is that?
29th.
What-
Wednesday.
Not
Wednesday.
Thanksgiving, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Day before Thanksgiving, is it?
Oh, my-
No,
that's-
it's
No,
an early week.
It's a week after.
Week
Okay.
after Thanksgiving.
All right, and that's it. Thank you very much for joining.
Stretching the leftovers at that time.
Oh, they're still good, man.
I got kicked, but I did it to
Oh,
myself.
this turkey's fine. It's only a week old. Shouldn't be a problem.
Oh,
All right. That's yours.